Welcome to the Black Knight Nation podcast. I'm your host, Sal Interdonato. The Black Knight Nation podcast is brought to you by Higher Echelon. Higher Echelon is a company run by Joe Ross. He's a former Army fullback, a former Army assistant coach, former Army officer, and we thank Higher Echelon for sponsoring this podcast. You could find our podcast on YouTube and also on all the audio platforms, and check out BlackKnightNation.com for also stories on the Black Knights recruiting football and other sports. We're going to welcome in our guest tonight, Army fullbacks coach Blake Powers. Blake, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it, Sal. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Happy Father's Day, first off, to all our fathers out there. Blake, we were talking about it before. It's a fun day, and now it's the day is over, and now this is our time to kind of like relax a little bit after a busy Father's Day, right?
Yeah, happy Father's Day to you too. It was good to get back home today. I was working at camp at Kent State, and so I got back today. It was good to get back home.
Yeah, maybe just start off with that a little bit about like now you worked in admissions and you worked in recruiting for the Black Knights since 2018, and then before the spring starts, I guess you get a promotion or you switch over to be the Army fullbacks coach. Talk about that a little bit and what that's like now, transitioning from, behind the scenes, so to speak, and now into a role as an assistant coach.
It's been great. I'm extremely blessed to be able to make that transition. And I was doing the job that Jeremy Trimble did before me and Gaylord Green before him, and making sure all of our guys were having support through the admissions process. So kind of working hand in hand with our recruiting department coaches on a daily basis, making sure all those guys were good. And it was a blessing because I got to learn a lot and doing a lot of advanced like football operations work too with the team. And so it was great to kind of learn about things from that perspective and learn about the program. And very similar to being a support staff in the Army, being a support staff in college football, to me, there was a lot of parallels. And I kind of look at it like moving from support staff in a battalion to company commander seat, where that staff role really helped you learn the job and set you up for success as a commander. And now that I've been given this opportunity, I'm just incredibly blessed and thankful. And this spring was an unbelievable learning opportunity. And I knew I wanted to coach football. I was coaching high school before I joined and went to officer candidate school. I was coaching high school, playing in the Arena Football League, and I knew I wanted to coach. I absolutely loved coaching at the high school level. I thought when I got out of the Army, I knew I wanted to coach one day. I thought it would be going back to the high school level. So to be given this opportunity with our guys and our players who I love more than anything, it's just an absolute blessing and something that I couldn't have asked for a better situation. And to learn under people like Coach Monk and Coach Davis and Coach Vitti is just makes it even better. So it's kind of been a long time here with the program, wearing multiple different hats, and to now be doing actual football, which I love and is my passion. Like I'm just extremely blessed, thankful.
Yeah, and coaching the B-backs of the Army is, of course, it's an important position for the offense and the team. Maybe we can get into that a little later. First, your background, right? Maybe we could go over your background. I mean, when we were scheduling this podcast and when you were, elevated to assistant coach, just looking up, like, man, you had a great college career. Maybe you could just talk us through, like, kind of where you came from there to now.
Yeah, I don't know about a great one. I had a disappointing one in my eyes, but
okay,
I enjoyed it. It was a great learning experience. In hindsight, I wish I could have not gotten injured and finished stronger, but I appreciate that. But yeah, I played and then was coaching, continuing to pursue football, and I kind of just realized that football doesn't last forever, and started looking at career options and starting a family and things like that, and I looked at the military as kind of a competitive challenge that really intrigued me. I kind of thought about joining out of high school. Like, I remember when 9/11 happened and watching the second plane hit in class on live television in that classroom. And I've always, had feelings about service. And then when football was, I was kind of tired of the politics and playing the whole game. And I just looked at the Army as a way to do something similar to football. And I was coaching high school. And then once I got in the Army, I kind of realized it was so much like football and so much like coaching. That's what I really liked about the Army. And I went through officer candidate school to become an officer. Went to infantry officer school down there at Fort Benning. Met a lot of guys who played for Army. That was kind of my first touch point with an Army football player and what that means and what that looks like. And some unbelievable dudes I served with, Steve, Zach Peterson, Mike Wyke, Kingsley Ahee. Went to infantry school, Ranger school, same time frame as all those guys. A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, good friend of mine, my neighbor now. Kind of came in right at the tail end at Ibolic. Pat went to Ranger school with Pat Mealy. So just meeting guys like that and learning about Army football and coming from the background I came from, I just was immediately a huge Army football fan. And like we were talking before the podcast started about when I had sworn into the Army and I was coaching high school football, like waiting to ship to officer candidate school. That was when Zach and Steve and all the Kingsley and all those guys had a good year, went to a bowl game. And I remember watching those games and them being in like the Digi ACU camo unis and like just being a huge Army football fan even back then. And then when Coach Monken got the job, I was like locked in. I knew his background. I knew that it was only a matter of time. And then I started tracking like what type of recruits they were bringing in. And I knew they were going to have those like recruiting areas that they knew a lot about in the South. And as you look now, Georgia and Texas are our number 1 and 2 supported states on our roster, and then Florida. And so they've done an incredible job in recruiting. I knew, and then when I was in the 101st serving with Zip and Zach Peterson and Nate Combs, deployed with Nate and all kinds of other guys, they'll tell you, all of them will tell you I was a huge Army football fan. I knew like everything that was going on with the team. And I'm like, this is turning around this year after the 2-10 year, because that 2-10 year, they lost 3 or 4, might even been 5 or 6 games that were like less than a touchdown to some good programs. They played Penn State tough that year at Penn State, lost a lot of close games that year. And I think they played Wake Forest really close that year. And so I knew they were getting it rolling. And then, I was out in the Army serving, and my old boss from Big Red 1, when I was an infantry platoon leader as a lieutenant that I deployed with, Colonel Bill Osland, a.k.a. Wild Bill. Shout out to Wild Bill. But he was DMI 6 here, and he knew Colonel Mark Ray. And that's kind of how it all started. Yeah. And I remember getting that phone call and just thinking, like, that sounded too good to be true to do that in the Army. And then Gaylord Green was big on the process of getting me here too. So I've always been really thankful and appreciated that Gaylord brought me on. And now we're going on, this will be my 5th season with the team this year. And so I'm just really excited to be doing actual football now. So that's kind of the whole process of how I ended up here. And I know that's a really long answer, but that's kind of how it all came together.
No, I mean, Steve's always talking about the brotherhood on this podcast, right? And how he can call guys up just out of the blue and you talk about that core group, right? And you talk about Steve Anderson, Pat Mealy, Zach Peterson, Andrew Rodriguez, those type of guys. And I tell you, Blake, one of my favorite guys to cover on that team was Nate Combs, because just what Nate Combs brought to the field every day and what he brought to practices every day was man, I just remember him. I believe it was an Air Force game coming up with a big turnover in that game. And when they were able to beat Air Force at home his senior year, I believe. You're talking about just guys. And then when they go to the Army, right, and then they're serving our country, it's just that continuance, it seems like, that kind of teamwork that's there from football. And now it seems like you're coming from the side of the military, right, and then bringing that military side to the Army program, it's almost I don't know. There is a similarity there to me. I don't know if you see it like that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Just being able to talk to our guys about service and before working here, I was an Army football fan just as a sports fan, the fact that I was serving. But when I met guys like Steve and Zach and Nate Combs and Pat Mealy and Mike White and went through Kingsley, he went through training with all these guys, like that was when I realized, like, you know, we had a lot in common, but those guys were just different, and that, you know, that was my first touch point with Army football players, and then served with guys out, you know, after the training in the real line units, and you know, Zach Peterson was our fire FSO, our fire support officer for our battalion when we deployed to Afghanistan in 2017, 18, but right before I came here to West Point. And Nate Combs was a platoon leader, an infantry platoon leader in our battalion. And Marcus Avery was also on that deployment with us. And it just, those guys were two of the best platoon leaders in the battalion, and Zach Peterson's the best fire support officer I've ever seen. Pretty much anyone I've served with, and you know, so I had a good idea just about, that was my first touch point about what an Army football player is, what it means, what they look like, and how valuable they are when they're out serving. And then since I've been here, you know, working here, it was really cool this year to see the senior class graduate, because my first year with the team, they were plebes. And guys like Chris Cameron and Nolan Cockrell and Eric Smith and Caleb John, and guys that I was just became really close with, to see them grow, and then to see like what they're going to do out in the Army as officers. You know, it just makes the meaning of Army football and the culture here and the brotherhood like even more valuable and meaningful to me, having served and with those guys and seeing how valuable they are out there as officers.
Yeah, I know that what you said, maybe your last duty as a Army officer was maybe commissioning players after they graduated, or no?
Oh yeah, recently at graduation, that was an honor for me to commission a lot of different guys and to do the oath of commission with them and with their families, and seeing how excited they are to go out there and serve. Like, you know, I tell guys in recruiting now, that the high school kids, and I understand from their perspective that the service piece is something that, you know, they're originally need to educate themselves on. Probably human nature to be a little hesitant about what that is, what that looks like, and that long of a commitment. And when you see our players get here and learn about it, and to be excited to go out there and serve, and they talk to guys that are graduated and serving, and they're out there living their best life, like loving the Army. You know, Christian Anderson had an opportunity to work out at Pro Day, and he said, you know what, I'm just ready to be an officer. And I really respected and admired that out of Christian, because I thought he had a shot at the next level. And that was awesome to see guys that are looking forward to serving. Like, and then the AIs that have been here, like, you know, being able to meet with those guys like Brett Toth and Alex Ackerman, all them, watch them go out into the Army. Andy Davidson, talking to him about Ranger School, and seeing him and a lot of these guys go earn their Ranger tab. Like, I think since I've been here, Army football is like 99% Ranger School graduation rate.
Wow.
Which, if you look at the rest of the Army and the graduation rate in the officer corps, that's saying a lot. I mean, I honestly think it's got to be 99%. Like, of all the guys that have just gone since I've been here, when I think back to Steve and Pat and Kingsley and all, Mike White, A-Rod, all those guys, like every single Army football player I served with at infantry officer training pipeline, all graduated Ranger School. So
they I see some social media posts on Instagram with former Army football players that graduated through Ranger School. Donovan Lynch is one I believe I've seen, and you know,
Donovan,
I mean,
he was an AI, and got to know Donovan really well. That's awesome. When I see those guys' Ranger graduation photos, it's like the greatest thing ever. Like, I'll send it, you know, I'll DM recruits like, hey, this is something that only a certain amount of people are willing to even attempt.
Yeah.
And, you know, the gratification and sense of accomplishment that you get from doing that is just, you don't get that going to a normal school. And, you know, that's really what I try to sell to kids about our culture, and that you get to be different. You get to do something different. And, you know, we don't run or hide from that like other academies that I won't mention. But like, we are proud of that. And it's unbelievable to see these guys go out there, enjoy it, maximize their opportunity, and look forward to being great platoon leaders. And what they learned under our program, under Coach Monk and the culture here. You know, when I came here, like, speaking of the whole timeline, when I first got here, I was absolutely blown away. Blown away. Like, just, it was evident to me immediately why they had just come off of a 10-3 season where they won 6 or 7 of those games. Michigan overtime win that year. They had the crazy Temple last minute drive when Kelvin Hopkins came in the game. Like, you're watching that from afar. I was out serving and we were deployed, and like, I knew I was coming here. And at that point, it was just like, you know, you don't get that at a normal school. You just don't. And so I try to sell that to all of our recruits.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm just thinking of the other guys I've seen, like like a Zach Som and those type of guys, and some of the pictures that you see out of the Ranger School, or there was like multiple. You know, there's another Army teammate with them that has graduated too. So, it's great to hear the percentages of guys moving on the ranks of the Army, so to speak. So when you you get to West Point, right, and you're involved in the missions, and then you get involved in recruiting, and now this spring we talked about a little bit, you transfer over to the coaching side, and you know the B-backs, like we talked about a little bit, the B-backs, you know, they kind of make the Army offense go to a certain point. And there's the talent of the B-backs, you know, in the past. I mean, just this past year, when you see guys like Jacoby Buchanan and Tyson Riley and Cade Bernard and Wilson Cateau, those guys, the impact that they can have on a game, and Anthony Atkins. Now, Buchanan and Riley back, it seems like you want to build some depth back there, right, where you can roll in maybe 3 or 4 guys a game, depending on the situations, right? And I'm guessing there's some young guys that are, you know, battling for, you know, spots in the spring, and will be in the preseason too behind Buchanan and Riley.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm incredibly blessed to step into coaching 2 guys with not only their physical ability with Tyson and Jacoby, but their understanding of the playbook and our system and their football IQ after being under a guy like Coach Vitti. I mean, in my opinion, one of the best young coaches in the nation, hands down, best fullbacks, one of the top running backs, like, you name it. He's going to absolutely dominate being the O-line coach. But I'm incredibly lucky to come in and coach 2 guys that have been trained under Coach Vitti. I'm incredibly lucky to try to pick Coach Vitti's brain as much as I can and learn as much as I can. And yeah, if you look at us over the last few years, we're going to utilize 4 or 5 fullbacks throughout the season, maybe even more. I think there was a game 2020, maybe it was like 5 or 6 different fullbacks scored in the same game, yeah. Touchdown. So we got a lot of young guys and that are battling for that 3rd and 4th spot, like cementing themselves there. And I tell them all, like, they're all physically gifted too. We got some good young guys. You know, you go down the line with AJ Williams, Jarrell, Markel, Lucky, Bo. All of those guys all of them are physically capable of playing and good enough. And this off season, we're just stressing that, you know, if you watch Tyson and Jacoby on film and all the things we talk about daily in spring meetings, that's why they're good players. On top of their physical ability, they're so technically and fundamentally sound in our system and our steps and how we mesh with the quarterback. All of those things are critical. So, you know, those young guys, I'm excited at what they're bringing to the table physically. I'm excited to coach them, and I'm excited to get them closer on a tactical and fundamental level to where Jacoby and Tyson are, because, and regardless of who emerges out of camp, they just got to understand it's a long season, and continuing to keep them ready and keep improving throughout the season too. And so I'm excited for that. And I know all those guys I just mentioned are excited to compete this camp and try to earn those spots coming out of camp.
Yeah, I think a couple guys, Lucky and Jarrell, might not have been. They were battling some injuries in the spring, so now we'll get a chance in the preseason to compete. And I look at Jacoby and how much he's grown, right? I mean, because you look at how the fullback position works, especially when Army has to throw the ball. The fullback position is key in the blocking and picking up blitzes and picking up those outside rushes too. And Jacoby, I've seen some growth with him, no doubt, in the last year or so with that. And it's not just running the football. It's not just selling in the mesh, selling the fake, right? I mean, there are different passing game just as valuable, and even on the bootlegs, so to speak, as a lead blocker for the quarterback, right? Those plays were very successful for Army. So, I mean, what have you seen? What did you see in him? I guess the leadership really, right, too, in the spring, right, from him too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, him and Tyson both are really trying to step into being more vocal and the leadership role, and being, now that they're upperclassmen. And that's something that has been great to see, that, I kind of challenge both of them that it's time to make that evolution, because everyone looks at them for emotional support and just being accountable and doing the little things right. And they've both done an unbelievable job. And Jacoby has really come a long way in his entire skill set as a B-back, with, like you mentioned, all the different things we do, lead blocking out in space, judging people's pursuit angle, something that Tyson took time. And I've watched the evolution of both of them, over the years, going back to game and watching game and practice film when they were younger, and how they both evolve under Coach Vitti is just absolutely remarkable. And then makes you appreciate when you go back and watch guys like Darnell Woolfolk, Kay Bernard, who is incredibly well-rounded and just a very good football player. And it makes you appreciate that entire skill set that comes to the table. And, that's something that I've challenged Jacoby, and I know he's challenged himself, and that watching his growth as an overall and all the skill sets involved with the position has been awesome, and something he's been taking really seriously. And like you said, absolutely paramount in our system. We do a lot more than just pound the rock to the fullback, as you know. So Jacoby's been working on it, and he's been doing an excellent job. And, his football IQ has grown so much as well over the years. And Tyson's, being a former quarterback, Tyson, just remarkable, his football IQ. And same with Bo Kite, who was new to the position, playing quarterback before. Bo was able to quickly learn it, because he came in really late to the position in the middle of spring ball and able to pick it up quickly. So all those guys, that's kind of what we've been challenged this summer, is getting in the playbook, doing Zoom meetings and actual meetings in person now that the NCAA allows you to do, and covering different game film. And like you said, Lucky, Jarrell, and AJ were limited. AJ got a little bit of work in the spring, and Jarrell and Lucky couldn't go at all, but they're all three going to be fully healthy for this camp. And so, just getting mental reps and the fundamental work down. And I've challenged them to go back and watch guys like Darnell Woolfolk and Kay Bernard, and watch how, almost flawless their footwork is, and their technique and their stance and their start and their track on every single play. Just incredibly fundamentally sound. Their pursuit angles, their first and second step when they're going out lead blocking out of their stance, attacking with leverage with their hands and blocking. It's just, they almost, a lot of those reps, you take it for granted. They almost make it look easy. And then you go back and watch them, and, you're coaching some of the younger guys, and you realize it's an absolute science. And I'm just excited to continue to learn and Coach Viti and continue pushing those guys and challenging them and setting them up for success the best that I possibly can.
Yeah, Tyson was the starting fullback at the beginning of the 2021 season, and I'm not sure that we've seen the best of him yet. I think there's a lot of, he been a little banged up, but when he's played, he's ran the ball hard. And what do you see of him as he enters his junior year?
Tyson is just a really gifted athlete, and on top of that, the thing I like about coaching him is his competitiveness and drive, and like every drill, competing with the other B-backs. Him and Jacoby are really close, and they have an awesome relationship. But the greatest part is how they challenge each other. It's awesome watching that and seeing Tyson, the way he competes daily, and knowing that he's hungry, because we talked when I first got the job about goals, and this past season it was frustrating for him, like you said, going through those injuries and trying to work his way back. And I think his best football is yet to come. He's worked incredibly hard on his building up his body, and he looks completely different right now. He's kind of finally grown up, going into his junior year here, and he's putting in the work too. So, I mean, he's like almost like having another coach in the room with how smart he is at football. And Cade Bernard was the same way. It's really high football IQ, and that's the biggest takeaway for me, was coming in and seeing like how well Coach Viti has taught them our system and how knowledgeable Tyson and Jacoby are. And so I think Tyson's best football is yet to come, physically and tactically and technically.
It's going to be fun to watch, because even last year when Wilson Cato made that change over from defense to running to fullback, and you just see his kind of evolution. It seemed like he got better and better as the season got along and got on the field a little bit more. And it's going to be fun to watch. Like Jacoby and Tyson, we kind of know what they can bring to the table, and what those younger guys that you have, right, Blake, that are going to have to give those guys a break every once in a while and see what they can offer. And you mentioned a guy like Bo Kite, who played was a linebacker last year, switches over to fullback. And man, I thought I saw a photo of like a AJ Williams and Lucky Brooks. Lucky Brooks got, I think, was recognized by the strength and conditioning staff this week as like a lifter of the week, so to speak, and stuff like that. Those guys are working probably their tails off this summer, right, in the weight room, and probably chomping at the bit to get out there when you guys get a chance later this summer. And before, I mean, it's already mid-June, and soon enough, they'll get their chance. So I mean, if they're gonna put in the effort in the weight room, and they're hitting, like you said, watching guys like Darnell Woolfolk and Cade Bernard and what they were doing, man, it's gonna be fun for you. It's gonna be fun for you once the preseason practices start, I imagine. So,
oh yeah, I'm ready to get after it in camp, and I'm excited to watch those guys get the ball in space and get an opportunity to set themselves apart from their peers in competition and really cement themselves. It's going to be awesome. I'm pumped for them.
And I think with this offense, right? Yes, the fullback is a major part of the offense, no doubt, and quarterback has a lot of say. But when you have talents like Tyrell Robinson, Isaiah Austin too, to provide those big shots, that's going to maybe give the fullbacks even more possibly options to break off some plays maybe this season. I don't know. What are you? I mean, those guys are just different athletes that Army has, with Tyrell Robinson and Isaiah Austin at those positions.
Yeah, they're both great playmakers for us, and you see it all throughout the season, and then again in the spring game. Two of the biggest plays in the game came from T-Rob and Isaiah, and the growth I've seen in both of them too. Off the field has been awesome to see, and how bought in they are. And yeah, having those weapons just opens up the fullback even more. It makes us, harder to defend. So the more weapons you have, and obviously with how we use our fullbacks being so critical to our offense, having those other weapons just makes us harder to defend. And we got a lot of guys that, can step into, and young guys you're seeing develop, and it's just awesome that we have, a lot of good players that have proven themselves in games. A lot of guys coming back on offense.
Yeah, I mean, some seniors that graduating like a Brandon Walters, Christian Anderson, Jabari Laws as skilled players, Cade and Wilson. But I mean, there's plenty of talent, right? There's some depth built up, no doubt. So, man, I think the offense will be fun to watch. And just to wrap up the podcast, I just wanted to ask you a little bit. We talked about recruiting at the beginning of the podcast, just what that's been like for you, because like you said, when you talk to these recruits, you have a little bit different perspective with having served in the Army prior and now being a coach. So I just, maybe you can give us a little perspective on that.
Yeah, I was very fortunate to be in that role, working with all of our recruited, commits and families over the years and helping them through that process. That, you start to get an idea of what types of kids that have been successful here that we've recruited over the years. And, when you're talking to them about the Army and joining and serving, I'm fortunate that I kind of understand how we do things here behind the scenes and in a lot of different ways, with how high of a number we recruit and now how we nationally recruit and how nationally, our roster is with guys from all over. It is a lot of work and something that, I was kind of already involved in anyway. So that's kind of been a pretty smooth transition for me. And I really do enjoy talking to kids and families about what this culture is about, what West Point as an institution will do for you as a leader, and how it will develop you and set you up for success and put you on a track for the rest of your life that in my opinion, no other school can. And, I love Indiana, and I had a great college experience there and a lot of close friends, and met my wife, Carrie, there. She played volleyball. I love the Hoosiers, but my fundamental, core belief in this place is just on a different level to me personally. And the bigger mission of watching guys go out and be unbelievable officers. When I talk to kids and families and recruiting, sometimes we don't talk about football until the second, third, fourth conversation. It's like, oh, hey, by the way, football is also absolutely elite here, and you're getting the best of both worlds. You get the elite football experience, an even better experience than I had at Indiana with the culture of winning. And our players, they don't, I think sometimes it's hard to understand like how fortunate you are to be in a culture like that. And, I think over time they realize how lucky they are. And especially like you talk to guys who graduated looking back. And so I just tell recruits, like, you're getting one of the most elite college football experiences in the nation, playing for one of the most storied programs that in college football history. And you're also getting so much more when football ends. It's kind of hard for them to understand that. So just diving into that and explaining to them what that looks like, all the different career paths they can choose from, the networks they'll establish later in life, trying to get them connected with former players and former graduates, and just kind of trying to give kids perspective. And the more they can learn about it, the more a lot of them understand and see how great of an opportunity it is. So that's kind of just the goal, is really pushing the culture in the program. And a place like West Point, in my opinion, really sells itself. So that's kind of my entire philosophy.
No doubt. There's a couple 2023 commits that I've talked to that have been recruited by yourself, and they mentioned the relationship that they've made with the coaching staff. Probably the first thing that one of the reasons why they're picking Army is because of the bond that they've established with the coaches and just the brotherhood in general. And we talked about it earlier. It's pretty powerful, just to be around a group like that and to share the same goals, not only, on the football field, but also outside of the football field. West Point is not easy, right? West Point is hard. and talking to a lot of even the older grads that have been through it. Yeah, you're going to have your ups and downs, but if you have that core relationship, but in that camaraderie with your brothers and even the cadets on campus, you're gonna get through it. You're gonna get through it, and when you're out the other end, then that's when the serious stuff starts with serving your country, and at least that's what I've got out of it from the older football players.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Blake, really appreciate you hopping on tonight. We were hoping to get Steve Anderson on with you to get a little reunion with you and Steve Anderson. Maybe we could do that down the road, but really appreciate you.
Game. I gotta get on Hollywood.
Yeah, we'll get you back on if you would like. We'll get you back on with him, and we'll have some fun. And maybe we won't talk football, all football. So maybe we'll talk a little other things. But really appreciate you having you on. Thanks for the insight. Really looking forward to watching you coach the B-backs this upcoming season. And keep an eye on the Jacoby Buchanan, Tyson Riley, and the B-backs this season for Army. The War Horses, they're still going to be the War Horses, right?
Oh yeah, can't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. You know what I mean?
Exactly, the War Horses of the Black Knights. And Blake, thanks a lot. Like you said, happy Father's Day to you, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And we'll be back for another edition of the Black Knight Nation podcast soon. You guys have a great night.